In almost every story, there's one thing that seems to remain constant, and that is the struggle between good and evil. Sometimes good and evil are represented by ideas and groups of people like the light and dark side in Star Wars. Sometimes it's represented by two individuals like Batman and Joker. And then other times, the struggle is represented within the heart of a single person, like Frodo in Lord of the Rings. But in almost every story, we see good and evil clash, good struggles and suffers for a moment, and then eventually evil is overcome by good. And this conflict between good and evil is not only something that we watch in a movie or read in a book, but every day we experience these strong, undeniable intuitions of right and wrong. But here's the question. Where does our sense of good and evil come from? How are we to understand and make sense of our inner intuition of morality? And is there such thing as objective morality at all? Well, philosopher Michael Ruse and biologist Edward Wilson suggest this, that morality, or more strictly our belief in morality, is merely an adaptation put into place to further our reproductive ends. Ethics, as we understand it, they say, is an illusion fobbed off on us by our genes to get us to cooperate. It is, they say, without external grounding. So here, the naturalist or atheistic understanding is laid out quite clearly. Morality to them is merely a product of our evolutionary development, a necessary adaptation for humanity to cooperate and pass on our genetic code. And from this understanding flow two important implications. First, such a worldview implies that morality is illusory. That is to say, we might experience strong intuitions of good and evil, right and wrong, of justice and injustice, but our experience of objective morality is actually just an illusion. But secondly, this worldview also implies that morality is arbitrary. In other words, there are no such categories of right and wrong or good and evil. Everything about our universe is morally neutral. So what happened on 9/11 or during the Holocaust, for example, may not have been our culture's ideal for human flourishing, but if there's no objective standard of morality, then there is no way for us to judge such competing moral visions as evil, immoral, or wrong. But what if we consider the alternative? It seems like it would make far more sense for us to consider our collective disgust at moral atrocities and our intense attraction to acts of love and generosity as clues to something greater rather than a misguided illusion. Gavin Ortlund states it this way, that under the theistic worldview, our moral nature would not be tricking us, but just the opposite. It would function like a clue or a sign about the great conflict that is driving the world. Good and evil, he says, are thus working their way toward an ultimate, lasting resolution. The Christian, he says, is then able to affirm both the chilling darkness and the aching beauty of the world. So, while an atheistic worldview denies our deepest intuitions of morality, a theistic worldview upholds our experience of an objective moral standard, and it provides us with a meaningful explanation for both the evils of our world and the ultimate goodness of it. And so, a quick question before we go. Why do you think so many stories center around the conflict between good and evil, and how might our longing for their resolution point to God?